And we're back. Okay. I had some technical difficulties about half an hour ago, but hopefully everything's good. If somebody's in the chat room, can you please tell me if my voice sounds good? It's not too laggy or anything. But anyway, thank you for being here, everybody. Thank you for watching the show afterwards. Today's Wednesday. My name is Biologist Wild Trees. And today I'll be talking about a big subject, which is Bigfoot or Sasquatch, or cryptozoology. Cryptozoology is basically, literally, it translates to the study of hidden animals. The term zoology is just a study of animals, and crypto means hidden. So these are animals that we have not officially discovered. We haven't officially given them a name. So some of these animals are sea serpents, Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, a classic one. But these animals are different from other animals like a rhinoceros or a giraffe, because a rhinoceros or a giraffe, everybody knows these animals are real. There's no debate about it. Nobody wonders about it. And so really that's where we want to be with some of these cryptids. I think the end goal of studying these animals, these cryptids like Bigfoot or Sasquatch, is to get to the point where nobody has to argue about whether they're real animals. We all know they're real animals. And for that reason, I think we need a body of a Bigfoot. It's really what we need. And so today I'm going to give an overview on what I think about Bigfoot and Sasquatch. And then toward the end, I will give my plan on how to get a body, which I do think is the ultimate goal for Bigfoot research, is to get a body, ethically get a body, not unethically. And also I'll talk about whether that's a good thing for Bigfoot. Is Bigfoot better off remaining hidden? Or is Bigfoot as a species, as a culture, better off being known as a real thing? We'll discuss that as well. So overall, I will say that I do think Bigfoot is real, Sasquatch. I do think there's something there to the stories. And I'll give some of the reasons why. Well, number one, these stories go back for a very long time. All over the world, there are reports of animals that look like Bigfoot. So it's very human-like, 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, a lot of hair. They live in the woods. They're mammals. Mammals are a type of animal that have hair and give milk to their young. So you and I are mammals. A whale is actually a mammal. Whales actually do have hair. They actually do have milk. They shoot it into their babies' mouths underwater. Very crazy, but true. Some other mammals are like a rhinoceros, a dog, a cat. Some animals that are not mammals are sharks, which are fish, a crow or a raven, which is a bird, snake, which is a reptile. But like I said, those stories go back for a very long time. We've been hearing stories about Bigfoot-like creatures of all shapes and sizes, of all types of attitudes. Some of them are friendly, some of them are mean, some of them are indifferent, but they all seem to be very good at hiding from us. And those stories go back way back into history. And then the other thing is that if they've never stopped, so those stories continue to appear. There's never been a gap in those stories. So we'll be talking about some modern cases. Now, the other thing about Bigfoot is that, of all these mythical creatures, even compared to the Greys or people that live in UFOs or appear in UFOs, it's not that remarkable. I don't think it's that hard to believe that a Bigfoot creature is real. So right now I'm going to read a little bit of an article from the National Post, and the link will be in the description. The article is called "There Used to Be 9 Species of Human. What Happened to Them?" Okay, so what it says that about 300,000 years ago, there used to be 9 different types of humans that used to walk around. So I like to say that right now humans are very lonely in this regard. There's only one type of human, which is Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens is the official technical taxonomic name for humans. Humans is the common colloquial name, but all animals that are known to science have a scientific name. And Homo sapiens, that's the name of us. That's our name. We own it. But yeah, so about 300,000 years ago, there used to be Neanderthals, which were stocky types of humans. They were in Europe, and they were adapted to the cold steppes or steeps. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. There were also used to be a species of human named Denisovans, which were from Asia. There was a more primitive species called Homo erectus, which lived in Indonesia, an island nation. There was Homo rodeniensis, which was in Central Africa. There were several short, small-brained species that survived along them. These were Homo naledi in South Africa, Homo luzonensis in the Philippines, and this is a pretty famous one, Homo florensis, or the Hobbits as they're known, which were from Indonesia. There's also mysterious red deer cave people in China. So we're also quickly discovering a lot of new species of these ancient hominids, or humans, basically. Like I said, these were all different shapes and sizes. Some of them were bigger than us, some of them were smaller than us. But yeah, basically about 10,000 years ago, they were all gone. The other thing, though, is that we have a lot of DNA of some of these earlier species. So part of them does live with us. So we did interbreed with these species. So what I'm saying is that, we have fossil evidence. We know there used to be human-like species that lived on this planet. Not only that, we have the great apes. So we have orangutans, we have chimpanzees, and we have silverback gorillas. So to me, it's not that crazy to think that, it's not that outrageous to think that a large species could survive, like a Bigfoot. And also we have that long history of reports of Bigfoot. We also have some physical evidence. We have, I already mentioned, a non-physical evidence, which is basically reports, people talking about how they saw a Bigfoot and describing it in detail. We're going to go talk about some of those in a little bit. But we do have physical evidence. So we have stuff like a photograph, videos. We have casts of the foot. So Bigfoot gets its name because the feet are very large. And if they walk in a soft, muddy or sandy ground, they will leave an imprint of their foot. And somebody can come in and pour something in there, like a castor or a plaster of Paris, a substance that will make a cast or a copy of that foot. So we have that as physical evidence. So what do we know about these Bigfoot, these creatures? Well, like I said, currently they seem to have a worldwide distribution. So reports come from everywhere. I'm not sure if there's one from Antarctica. That's the one place. But perhaps there is one from Antarctica, although it is a very inhospitable place to live. But, all the other major countries have Bigfoot reports in them. We know from the reports, we know that they are very muscular. They're very fast. They're very large. They're very tall. I've seen them reported to be anywhere from 12 feet tall, maybe 14 feet tall. So they're very large, very muscular. They seem to weigh a lot, but they're also incredibly fast. So you'll be surprised by how fast they can move. They can climb up a tree, go up a mountain, go down a slope. Very quick. They're also very stealthy, so they're very good at camouflaging. I mean, this makes sense to me. If you're a species that lives in the forest, you're carnivorous, there's reports of them being carnivorous or omnivorous, so they eat meat and plant matter. Well, if you're a predator, you do want to be camouflaged. You want to hide from your prey so you could better eat it. So a lot of people say that they're very good at camouflage. How do they do that camouflage? Is it their fur? Is it their movements? Are they just really good at staying perfectly still? Is their fur adapted to blend in with the forest behind them? Does their fur have some kind of properties that maybe bends the light around them and makes them invisible to a human eye? We're not really sure. I would also say they're very dangerous. The potential danger level for seeing a wild Bigfoot is very high. I would say it's like, you cross a crocodile, a wild crocodile, you're in a river with a crocodile, that amount of danger with being in a small area with an aggressive bear. You cross that also with being in an area with an aggressive chimpanzee. They have the potential to be very, very dangerous. I mean, they could very quickly end your life or significantly hurt you. So a healthy amount of respect is needed for dealing with them. And so that's something that needs to be thought about when doing any kind of research with them. I also suspect they're very smart. I suspect they're very intelligent. If they're anything like the other hominids or like us, they're very intelligent. I suspect some of them probably have a language, and they could speak, and they have a culture, and they have traditions. Could they be smarter than humans? It's a potential, yes. I think they're at least as smart as a small child, I think, based on some of the things I've heard. But yeah, they're very smart, very fast, very big. They're super well adapted for living in the woods. Some of the things that differentiate them from other hominids or from people, one of the ways you could tell whether it's a real Bigfoot video or real Bigfoot specimen or photo, as opposed to just a human, a hairy naked human, or a person dressed up as a Bigfoot, is an analysis that was done by a channel called Thinker Thunker here on YouTube. Basically, he came up with this ratio where he takes a picture of a Bigfoot or an alleged Bigfoot, and he measures the length of the arm, all the way from the shoulder all the way to the tip of the fingers. And then he takes the measurement from the same photo from the legs, all the way from the toes up to the hips. And what he found is that if you do this with a legitimate Bigfoot photo, then the length of the arm and the length of the leg is very similar. It's very close to each other, which makes sense. This is the type of proportion you would see in a species that's adapted for climbing in trees. But he analyzed pictures of people who have been faking a Bigfoot photo. So these are people that are just dressed up like a Bigfoot. And he analyzed those photos, and that ratio, the arms are very much shorter than the legs. And that's normal for humans. He also took a bunch of different pictures of humans, like women, men. He took pictures of like Shaquille O'Neal, big basketball stars. And all humans have this ratio where the arm length is smaller to the leg length. But once again, all the Bigfoot photos that he believes are real have arm lengths that are very proportionate or just as long as the leg lengths. So that seems to be a good indication of whether you have a legitimate Bigfoot in a photo or whether you see one in person. And that's a good way of telling if it's just a fake person with a suit on. It's not foolproof, but it is a very creative method of telling. Like I said, this would help you because if you have longer arms, you're able to climb faster. And these species do live in areas where there's a lot of trees. The other thing is that sometimes these Bigfoot have been reported to have like very strange and bizarre type of adaptations. Like sometimes they're seen just have like a portal, or they could open up like a gateway in space, or they could turn into a ball of light, or they could like read your mind, or they could just do bizarre things. The other thing I think might be going on there is that, perhaps some of these Bigfoot are not just species that live on Earth. They're not just wild animals. Perhaps some of them are actually, UFO occupants. UFOs a lot of times have weird things inside them. You could call them aliens, although, who knows where they're from. They could be from another planet. They could be from another dimension or from another time. But, who's to say that one of them isn't like Chewbacca? Who's to say that some of these UFO occupants, they just look like what we consider a Bigfoot. So that could be a different category of these animals. The other thing is, why are UFOs sometimes seen with Bigfoot? Well, I think another explanation could be, one is that the people in the UFO are the Bigfoot-like creatures. But another explanation could be, well, we know that a lot of times UFO occupants are interested in humans. They follow us around in our cars. They abduct us. That's what the stories say. Why wouldn't they also be interested in Bigfoot? If Bigfoot is a real animal, arguably they're more interesting than us. for a lot of reasons. So I think that perhaps the reason why UFOs could be seen around a Bigfoot is because the UFO is pestering the Bigfoot, basically, just like they pester us. All right, we have a comment here. Yo, hey, Mr. Catfish, thank you for being here. Mr. Catfish, let me know if I sound all right. Iowax was in here earlier, and sometimes my voice was laggy, so I had to restart. So let me know if I sound okay, so I'm not wasting everybody's time. But I suspect I sound okay because you haven't mentioned it yet. Okay, so yeah, so that's what I think about Bigfoot. I think they're a real animal. I don't think all of them are just animals. I think some of them may be UFO occupants, so they come from some other place. And I think some of them may be being harassed by Bigfoot, basically. I mean, by UFOs. And that's why you see a connection between both of them. All right. All right, thank you, Mr. Catfish. Mr. Catfish says that I sound pretty clear. Thank you so much, sir. He says, it's clear. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Okay. So a question somebody might be asking, you saw the title of the video, Biologist explains how to get a Bigfoot body. So one of the questions may be, why get a body? That's a good question. That's a legitimate question. Why do I want a body? Well, first of all, I'll say that, my plan for getting a body, everything I do when I start describing the plan, it's always done with the best intentions for Bigfoot. I work with animals. I believe that as a scientist or just as a human, we should always treat animals with respect. We should treat them ethically. We should think about their feelings, their well-being. So my plan is always to help Bigfoot, the species. I don't want to cause any stress or harm to it. So basically, I think I want a body because I want to help Bigfoot. I think a body is the gold standard for proving, or without a shadow of a doubt, scientifically showing that an animal is real. And until an animal is real, we can't really understand it that well. We can't study it, and we can't conserve it. We can't protect it. We cannot protect an animal. We cannot protect its home. We have the Endangered Species Act. We can't do all these things to help an animal if we don't know if it's real, if there's no proof that it's real. So that's one of the reasons why I want a body. So the end goal of having a body is to eventually help Bigfoot. But I guess I'll talk about this right now. Is that good for Bigfoot? Bigfoot is hidden right now, basically by the way it acts. It seems like it wants to remain hidden. It does not want to be found. So my question, I guess I have to ponder and ask for everybody here, you can put it in the comments if you're watching later, is should Bigfoot remain hidden? Is it better? Because if it's not hidden, if we know about it, then certainly there's going to be people that try to exploit it. People try to exploit it now, though, so I don't know. That's why it's confusing. I'm trying to figure out, is it better for Bigfoot to remain hidden? Like I said, the benefits of proving that Bigfoot is real is that we could protect its environment, we could pass laws, and ultimately help it. The bad side of discovering that it's real is that it could be exploited. We could have a lot of bad characters coming out of the woodwork to try to cause it harm. And another bad potential thing is that it itself does not want to be found. It likes to remain hidden. So these are very interesting questions. Maybe a conservation biologist could answer these questions. But let's go back to the question of why I want a body. Okay. Well, let me go back to the example I talked about. Let me name a couple of animals, okay? A Loch Ness monster, okay? The chupacabra, a rhinoceros, and a raven. Okay, so what's the difference between these animals? Well, number one, the raven, and I forgot what the other animal I said, but let's say the raven. The raven, we all know it's real. There's no debate about whether it's real. Nobody's going to argue with you whether ravens are real. Now, however, the chupacabra and the Loch Ness monster, there's a big debate whether it's real or not. So why is that? Well, it's because we have a body of a raven, and it's because we have a body of these other animals. That's why we don't argue about them. So let me explain this topic. So this a topic of science called taxonomy. Taxonomy is a study of animals and the classification of animals. So as scientists and zoologists and biologists, we really want to understand every single animal that lives on this planet. We want to be able to name it and give it a name and understand it very well. We have a comment real fast. Let's see what we got going on. So, Melinda's here. Thank you. Oh, it's nice to see you, Melinda, here in the live. I'm glad you can make it. She says, if it's real and has managed to stay alive, I say it's doing fine on its own. If found, we would just exploit it and it would go extinct. Yeah, that's the argument for sure. That is the argument. So with that being said, I will still talk about how to prove it's real. I can't help myself. I'm a scientist. This is what I do. I like discovering new species. But thank you for that comment, Melinda. So, okay. So taxonomy is the study of studying species of animals and giving them names. Basically, there's this binomial nomenclature or a Linnaean taxonomy. Carl Linnaeus is one of the scientists or the first scientists to decide, hey, there's a bunch of animals. We're calling them all kinds of different things. Why don't we officially find a system for organizing these animals? And that's where the Linnaean classification system comes. It's named after the scientist named Linnaeus. And binomial nomenclature is the system he devised. So binomial means two names. So like I said, all species have these two names. The first part is a genus, which is a classification. And the second part is the species epithet. So basically humans have, as an example, we have a name called Homo sapiens. That is our name. We own it. Homo sapiens is the name of a human. So if you find a new species, this is what happens. So let's say I find a body of Bigfoot. This is what would happen. I would have the body and I would want to preserve that body. So I would want to preserve the skin, the bones, the hair. I want to preserve it. There's different methods of doing that, like taxidermy, basically. And then not only that, but I would write a research paper about that body. So I would take pictures of all the bones, measurements, CAT scans. I would draw pictures of it. I would have photographs in this research paper. I would take measurements. I would detail everything about this body. I would talk about where it was found, when it was found. And if I was the one that got the body, I would get to name it. I would name it whatever I want to. I would probably have to come up with a separate genus or classification system, but I would name it whatever I want to. I can name it after someone famous if I wanted to. You hear about this all the time in the news. You know, whenever a new species is found, sometimes it's named after someone famous. I believe the oldest known predator was just discovered, a fossil, and it was named after Richard Attenborough. And that's just something that scientists do in order to give honor to a scientist. But yeah, that's what I would do with the body. I would get the body, I would measure it, preserve it, and then I would write this scientific paper, and that body would be deposited in a museum. A museum probably at a large university. So most large universities all over the world, if they have a biology department, they also have a museum department. It's not a traditional museum. It's not a museum where you could go and look at exhibits. This is more of a research museum. So then when you go in these rooms, there's these big cabinets made of metal, and you open them up. Sometimes they're under lock and key. You open up the cabinets, you pull out a drawer, and right there you'll have all these different bones and skin or insect bodies. And each of those bodies will have a little tag that identifies them, and it tells you where they came from. And when I write that paper for Bigfoot, I will also describe in that paper where that body is stored, where in that museum. That's the key difference between why Bigfoot would be well known, because at that point, anybody could read my research paper and see that Bigfoot is a real animal. At any point, they could read that paper and they could see where I put that body. So if they're a scientist and they really, really want to know, they don't believe me, they could go to that museum, ask for permission, and they could see the body for themselves. Now, as far as I know, I think this system has occurred, this process has occurred for every single animal that has been discovered. So every insect that we know of, every mammal, every plant, somewhere there's a research paper that was written describing it. And in that paper, it describes where the body is found, where you could go look at that body. And so there's no debate. So basically, that body is called a type specimen, a TYPE. A type specimen is the body that is used to describe a new species to science. And that is what I want. I want a type specimen of Bigfoot. If I have that body, if I write that paper, if I do that project, and if I deposit that body in a museum, then the debate will be over. We will know that Bigfoot is real. Okay, here we go. Rican Havoc. Hey, what's up? Thank you for being here, Rican. And we have... okay, so Melinda is I believe she's a environmental ecologist, if I'm correct. But she's a scientist. She has a PhD. Very impressive. So Melinda says, I cataloged about 6,000 birds when I was in grad school. It was fun. Yeah, that's great. I've cataloged, thousands of insects mainly. But good for you. So Melinda definitely knows what I'm talking about there. Rican Havoc says he used to help his uncle when he was younger. I believe you're talking about taxidermy. Very good. Linda says, see, you've already killed Bigfoot and put him in the museum. Okay, so I'm going to get to that point. My plan does not involve killing Bigfoot. Once again, look, Bigfoot is arguably as intelligent as a human. So it is unethical to kill a human just for its body. It's illegal, unethical. So Melinda, that's a good point. Once I get to my plan, I will tell you right now, though, my plan does not involve killing Bigfoot. No, sir. I will get a body without killing Bigfoot. Mr. Catfish says, hey, Rican. And Melinda clarifies that she has a degree in environmental biology with a specialty in behavioral ecology. Well, thank you. When I get to my plan, I would love to have your feedback because my plan involves a lot of behavior, a lot of animal behavior to get this body. And then Mr. Catfish says he'll be right back. Whoops, drop my notes here. Okay. So I feel like I've talked about why I would want to prove Bigfoot real. Number one, it would be for conservation methods. It would be to understand the animal and help protect its environment and protect its culture and species. Although I am aware that this may be a fool's errand, the road to hell is paved by good intentions. So right now, let's just call this a thought experiment. I do think my plan is doable. I think it could work, but it's a tricky situation. And we have a environmental biologist, which already is voicing her opinion that it would not be good for Bigfoot to be proven real. So we will continue, but these are good ideas. These are good plans. Okay, so I'm working up to the plan. First, I want to talk about some kind of compelling Bigfoot cases that I know of. I have about 3 cases. And then after I talk about these cases, one of them relates to my plan. So first, let me pull up some pictures. And I will say, so I'm about to retell a story about a very close Bigfoot encounter. This happened in Ohio, and it happened about 40 years ago. This was told to me personally on a podcast. I did a podcast interview on a show called the Church of Mabus, and the link to that is in the description. That interview actually went viral. It got like about 357,000 streams on SoundCloud, so a lot of people listened to it. It was also broadcast on the radio in Louisiana, in New Orleans, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but the link is in the description. So the person who told me the story is Jay McNicholson, and I have some pictures of where it happened. I took these pictures with Microsoft Flight Simulator. And so we're going to kind of fly over the area, and I'm going to just retell the story as he told me. All right, so here we go. Let's go ahead and here we go. All right. Okay, so this is above the area where it happened. So this was in Ohio. Once again, it was about 40 years ago. He gave me the coordinates. And so we're kind of above. We're going to get closer to the area where this story happened. We're kind of above it. This is a residential area. You can see there's already a lot of woods right there. Okay. So this is what he said. He said Jay told me. He said he was 10 years old, 40 years ago, 10 years old in Ohio. He was at his cousin's house. This is in an industrial part of Ohio, mostly steel production and distribution. And this encounter, this house was, there was some woods behind the house. We'll get some more slides here. We're going to get closer. This is just showing what it looks like from the sky. Getting closer. Okay, so here we have close. You see that little row of houses? It happened in one of those houses. And you see there's a little tract of woods back there. Okay. So he said, yeah, it happened in this industrial area. He said, at the time, 40 years ago, there was a mall there. There was a McDonald's. But it was an area where you would not expect to see a Bigfoot. Oh, okay. Wow, this is interesting. So yeah, this kind of maybe hits home close to home for Melinda. She says, wow, I was 10 years old 40 years ago, and I'm from Ohio originally. Yeah, well, let's see what happens. This is a remarkable story. I like this story because it has a lot of, this story, it involved smells. It involves seeing something. He smelled something. He heard something. He saw something. He saw footprints. It's pretty crazy. So, this is an industrial area. He was like, he wouldn't think this is an area that would have Bigfoot. Okay, so he was on the second story of one of these houses. So you can see here, we're going to get a little bit closer to some of these houses. Here we go. I think there's some more. Yeah. Okay. Right, these little houses right here. There were 6 kids in all. They were playing on the second story, and there was a babysitter downstairs. All the parents were out because it was Thanksgiving weekend. It was cold, but not snowy. They were all playing on the upstairs window. The window was open, but there was a screen. This is a second story window. All these kids, cousins are playing, 6 kids. My friend Jay, he was the only one facing the window. He said he was about 10 to 11 feet from the window. That's when he smelled a god-awful smell, he said. Smelled like a skunk and like poo. He said it made him want to vomit. He said he'll never forget that smell. He tells his oldest cousin at this point, he says, hey, I think one of your little twin siblings has a dirty diaper. Why don't you tell the babysitter who's downstairs, and she could clean it up, and we could keep on playing. We're having a good time. But as soon as he says that, he sees the open window, and he sees that behind the screen, he sees the face of a Bigfoot. This is a second story window, mind you. He says it was a big old Bigfoot face. It had a big mustache. The skin around the eyes, the nose, and the lips was bare. No hair around there. Hairy everywhere else. He said the hair was dark brown and grayish. He said he got super scared and he froze. Now, he said he couldn't move. So he smelled this Bigfoot. He couldn't move. And he said he noticed the expression on the kid's face. He said, on the Bigfoot's face, he said that the Bigfoot was happy. He was full of joy. He said the Bigfoot was enjoying seeing the kids play. So I've heard this before. Like Bigfoot, they seem to enjoy watching children play. Very strange. But then, as soon as the Bigfoot saw that Jay was looking at him, he got angry. He went from joy and happiness to anger, and he growled at him. And so this is where the sound comes in. So now Jay has smelled it, he's seen it, and he's heard it. So it's this large growl. All the kids scream, and they go running downstairs. At this point, he was the only one who saw the Bigfoot, though. They all run downstairs, and they tell the babysitter. They're like, hey, there's a Bigfoot in the window. They look in the backyard, and they see a 10 to 12 foot tall creature, and they see it jump down from the roof and onto a small log cabin that was a playhouse. So this log cabin was about 4 to 5 feet tall. It was a little playhouse for kids. So they see it jump on top of that. Then they see it jump on a sandbox next to the little playhouse. And they said this thing was massive, weighed about 800 pounds, but it only took about 2 to 3 strides, and it was out of the backyard. So in about 2 to 3 seconds, it had just leapt from the roof to this playhouse to the sandbox, and it was out of there. Now, at this point, he said in the backyard, the babysitter and one of his cousins and he himself did see it. So we have multiple witnesses that saw this creature jump off. Okay, then he said his uncle and aunt came home. later on, and they thought it was just a joke. They thought they were just joking about this Bigfoot they saw. Well, these are all a bunch of little kids. He was 10 years old. I think he might have been one of the oldest kids. Well, the next morning, the oldest cousin went to the backyard, and on the side of the house, next to the window, right now we're looking at one of the houses where it happened. You see there is a tract of woods back there where the Bigfoot ran off to. Here's some more pictures from kind of far away. So next to the window, they saw two huge muddy handprints on the side of the window. So this was where Bigfoot had been looking, like where he had been propping himself up. So they see handprints, muddy handprints. And then on top of that playhouse, on the roof, some of the slats were bent in. This is where Bigfoot jumped on top of it. And in the sandbox, there was a 2.5 foot long footprint. And this is where Bigfoot had been standing. Now, he said that, he was a 10-year-old kid. He at that time, he didn't know about the plaster of Paris. He didn't know about preserving the tracks, which is understandable. Otherwise, he would have preserved those tracks. And he said behind the house, there was a lot of tracks because there was wet grass still. So he could still see the tracks. They followed it about 2 to 3 houses down. They followed it for about an acre. But then they went into a creek. So there's a creek behind his house, and they lost the tracks at the creek. And that is basically the story. So we have multiple witnesses, we have smells, we have footprints, we have handprints, we have sounds, we have a visual confirmation of the body, we have a visual confirmation of the face. Very, very strong case. And it's weird. It happened in this area in Ohio. I mean, look at it. These are current pictures. It happened 40 years ago. But even now, I mean, if you look at it, you wouldn't really think this was where Bigfoot would be seen. But yeah, that's what happened. So very interesting. Let's go now to one of the most famous Bigfoot cases, which is Patty Gimlin case. So here's a famous still from the film that was shot, the Patterson-Gimlin film that was shot. I'm going to give you some details about this. So this is probably the most famous video, probably the most analyzed video of Bigfoot. It appears to show a female walking in California. Okay, so this is part of I'm getting this information on Wikipedia. Link is in the description. So this is part of an American short motion picture of an unidentified subject that is said to be Bigfoot. It was shot in 1967 in Northern California, and it has since been subject to many attempts to authenticate it or debunk it. So this footage was filmed alongside Bluff Creek, a tributary of the Klamath River, about 25 logging miles or 40 kilometers northwest of Orleans, California, in Del Norte County on the Six Rivers National Forest. The site is roughly 38 miles or 60 kilometers south of Oregon, and 18 miles or 30 kilometers east of the Pacific Ocean. All right, so the filmmakers were Roger Patterson, who passed away in 1972, and Robert or Bob Gimlin, who is still alive, but he was born in 1931. All right. The film is about 23.85 feet or 7.27 meters long, and it has 954 frames. So it was shot on film. There was no digital cameras back then. The film runs for 59.5 seconds at 16 frames per second. Although there's some debate whether it was shot at 18 or 16 frames per second. And the date of the film was October 20th, 1967, according to the filmmakers. Okay, I also have some satellite footage of what that area looks like. I got this online. As far as I know, it's accurate, but the link is in the description. So this is some aerial views of the site. So you see a little pin there. That is the site. So what you see is this is a very green area, super green area, very mountainous, pretty inaccessible. The people who shot this, Patterson and Gimlin, they were on horseback at the time. They didn't have any motors. They didn't have any gasoline or oil. Some people suspect that helped them get that photograph. Once again, we're just right over the area. You see that little pin to the left of my little helicopter? That is where it happened. But yeah, this is one of the most famous Bigfoot cases. Okay, so now let's go to start talking about my plan. All right. Well, I live in Texas, in Houston, Texas. And here, this is a website called woodape.org / explorer. And what you're looking at is Texas, mostly East Texas. And each of these little Bigfoots represents a sighting, a report. Someone saw a Bigfoot and they reported it. And as you can see, boy, that's a lot of Bigfoot sightings. There seems to be a pattern. It seems to be mostly in East Texas and not a lot in Central Texas and not a lot in West Texas. Now, West Texas is a lot of desert, so I guess that kind of makes sense. Some shout outs here. Scotty B says, hey, John, a great job the other night. I agree. John did a great job. And thank you for being here, Scotty. And Iowax, hey, thank you for coming back, Iowax. Thank you for letting me know about my audio being bad earlier. Iowax is a all-star for Science of the Strange. He has been at every episode since I started this show. And I sure do appreciate you being here, Iowax. Please subscribe to his channel and also subscribe to Wreaking Havoc's channel. Wreaking Havoc 215, here he is. He was on my last episode. He talked about his lifetime of abduction experiences. Okay. So, yeah, there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings here. So my plan to get a Bigfoot body, it would happen here in East Texas. Let's zoom in closer to the area where I would probably do the research. Although right now it is only a thought experiment. Okay, so now we're centered into a closer area. Now, this area is known as the Texas Big Thicket, and it's a national preserve. It's actually the nation's first national preserve. That means that this area, it's set aside for nature and for wildlife, and nobody can, do anything else there unless they have a lot of super duper permission. As I think some logging does happen there and some oil stuff, and there are some houses, but by and large, this is a nature preserve. It's there to preserve nature. Now, you see there are scattered Bigfoot sightings in this area. I've worked in this area. I've done research. I've published research in this area. I found a new species of beetle in this area. Now, what I want you to notice is the way this preserve is set up. So if you notice, there's some areas that are darker. So there's some darker areas or darker green areas. And some of these darker green areas are connected through corridors. So the way the preserve works, which is very clever, is it's not one large landmass. It's not a continuous landmass. I don't think that would be really, I don't know if that would be really, practical to have one big chunk of land as a preserve. So they did the next best thing. Oh, John P. Adventures is here. Good vibes, good vibes. Hey, John P. Adventures, thank you for being here. John P. Adventures is also a Wild Trees All-Star. He's been here since I've been on Black Lotus Live. Thank you for being here, John. I sure appreciate it. Okay, so as I was saying, this is a natural preserve, which I have worked in, where if I were to get a Bigfoot body, I would do it here. Although, hey, I'm putting it out there. This is just a thought experiment. I'm not going to do it. I would love some feedback. I'm not even sure if this is ethical to do. I'm not even sure if this is the best thing for Bigfoot. But I was talking about how it's a preserve, so the scientists want to have this area set aside for nature, but they can't have one huge big block of continuous land. So what they did is, if you look at these darker green areas, what they've done is they've actually, they do have some smaller chunks of land, but they connect them through corridors. So they use a creek or a stream or a waterway that connects one to the other. And what they do is they protect all the land around the creek. So all these pieces of land, they're all spread out over this area in East Texas, but they're all connected to protected corridors of water. So that means that they're all connected. There really are one large area. So a large animal like a wolf, actually there are no wolves in this area, but maybe a coyote or a Bigfoot or a deer or fish, they could actually go from one area to another area. And so really the size is increased. Now, I suspect that Bigfoot travels through creeks, through waterways. Why will I do it when I'm in the woods? I've gotten lost in the woods here. And what I do is I go through the creeks and the water because it's less work. This area is called the Big Thicket. It's called the Big Thicket because it's incredibly thick. There's a bunch of woods there. One time when I was lost there, I mean, every inch of progress I made was a small victory because it was so thick. But if you go through water, and you could travel much faster. When I got lost, I was traveling through the water, but I got a little dangerous because I was getting tired and there was venomous snakes and I could have tripped and drowned. So I decided to stick to the land. Spoiler alert, I did get out of the woods. I was only lost for a few hours and I managed to keep my cool. But yeah, I suspect Bigfoot uses these corridors to travel. So part of my plan involves studying these corridors for Bigfoot activity. But yeah, like you said, like I said, there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings in this area. Here we have a idea. A comment. Iowa says no animal wants to die, so if they had this chance, they choose to be revived. Right? Yes, that's correct. Once again, I don't want to get into the plan so far, but I will say I want to reiterate. My plan is to get a Bigfoot body. However, I am not going to kill a Bigfoot. This does not involve ending the life of a Bigfoot. That's very important. That's important to me. So yes, you're right though, Iowa. I would never kill an animal like a Bigfoot, although I have killed a lot of insects. But that's a story for another day. I'm an insect researcher. What can I say? Okay, so yeah, here's our area. I think we have some more photos. Okay, so this is what this area looks like from above. This wooded area. Like you said, it's like an ocean of green. I mean, there's a lot of green. And right here, we're right above one of the accounts. So I'm going to read some of the accounts of Bigfoot from this area. So if you go to that website that I mentioned, that skunk ape, the wood ape, I think, woodape.org. The link is in the description. You can see all these awesome cases. So let me go ahead and read one of these cases. All right. So this is the case where we're right above where Bigfoot is. Now, this is to the right of this photo. That's where I got lost. You see that big mountain of green? That's where I got lost. And right under here, where we are in this photo, there's a little road. And that's where this Bigfoot sighting happened that I'm about to talk about. Okay, so yeah, this is at woodape.org. Okay, let's see. Here's what it says. Okay, so this case, it happened in fall of 2003. It happened in Polk County, Texas, near Dallardsville. The time was about just after sunset. It was barely dark, not too long after sunset. I was using headlights. Okay, the number of witnesses is 2 witnesses. This is what happened. In the fall of 2003, my wife and I were driving on FM 1276 near the Big Sandy Creek unit of the Big Thicket National Preserve after sunset. It was almost fully night. So you're looking at this area. This is the the Big Sandy Creek unit of the preserve. This is one of these areas I talked about of the preserve. We have a comment. Melinda, our resident environmental biologist, says, that sounds good. To study corridors at waterways seems like setting up lots of cameras at these various points to catch photos of Bigfoot would be the most practical way. Yes, of course. Yes, that's very good. Very good. I do like that. I guess I'll say right now, Bigfoot seems to be camera shy. I don't know if they can tell the camera's there. I have seen some video with trail cams, but the cameras are super far away. Another thing I thought about is cleverly hiding the camera, and so that it's positioned in a way that it's photographing a mirror. Okay, this sounds complicated, but it's really not. So what I'm saying is, normally you have a trail cam and you just point it directly at what you want to shoot. Right? It's like, that's what I want to shoot. But it seems like Bigfoot may be shy. So what if you do this instead? Okay, it's not that complicated. What you do is you get a mirror and you put it in a tree somewhere, and that mirror is reflecting the creek, is reflecting the area you want to get on film. And what you do is you put your trail camera in a tree, but instead of pointing it at the creek, you point it at the mirror. So this way it kind of deflects the image. The camera's not pointed directly at the creek. Why do I think this would work? I have no strong evidence, but I just feel like, we all have a sense that someone is staring at us. We could tell if you're just in a line at school, wherever you are. If somebody's staring at you, you just tell. You could see their eyes. So I'm thinking this mirror thing would kind of diffuse that gaze. Perhaps not. And how about infrared cameras or flying drones over big areas? Yeah, that could be interesting as well. Yes, definitely. That's a good idea, for sure. Okay, thank you for that, Melinda. Okay, so yeah, back to this case. So we're looking at an area of the Big Thicket Preserve. Okay, a couple was driving there in the fall of 2003, and this was right after sunset. Okay, this is what the witness says. We both witnessed a bipedal animal run across the road in front of us. It was running on two legs, but ran in a bent over posture with its arms near or on the pavement sometimes. It ran very quickly and well. The animal was around 5 feet in height and covered with long reddish brown hair. It was a very broad build and looked somewhat like an orangutan, except that it had a flat face and was proportioned more like a human with long arms. There's those long arms I talked about. It had entered the road in front of us from the driver's side, ran across the road, and paused briefly on the other side of the road to look at us before entering the woods. It looked at us by turning its body partially. I had braked as it entered the road and passed it just after it entered the edge of the woods. So it was going from the left to the right. So it was going toward that big thicket unit, that big sandy area. Here's another comment from Iowax. He says, space cameras, none will hide from the space cameras. Yeah, we do have satellite pictures that are very, very good. Okay, now back on this case, there's another section here called physical evidence. My father saw the animal in a separate incident that week at the same location. He also knows a woman who saw the animal well. Okay, here's some observations from the investigator. So somebody at this website, Wood Ape, investigated, and here are some notes. The investigator's name is Michael C. Mays. He says this interview was conducted as a result of an alleged sighting of a large upright biped that matches the description of a wood ape in Polk County in the fall of 2003. I interviewed the witness via telephone on the evening of Tuesday, February 26, 2013. The witness was friendly, open, and cooperative. The wife of the reporting witness also participated in the interview, and she too saw the animal in question riding with her husband in 2003. For the purposes of this report, the husband referred to as witness number 1 and the wife as witness number 2. The couple was driving southbound on FM 1276 near the Big Sandy Creek unit. Let's see what else. Witness number 1 said there was an open field bound by barbed wire fence at this spot, and while he could not be positive, he felt the figure had jumped over the fence. All right. It says witness number 1 recalled seeing the figure clear a ditch and come into the paved shoulder of the road in a bipedal fashion. Upon reaching the paved portion of the road, the figure dropped down and quickly crossed the front of the vehicle on all fours. Witness number 1 said the figure actually seemed to pick up speed after it dropped down on all fours. Very interesting. He noted the hands really only touched the ground a couple of times, and it smoothly crossed the road. All right, very interesting. Both witnesses agreed that it was about 5 feet tall and covered in reddish brown hair. That's the other thing. I've noticed that the Bigfoot reports from this area of Texas and in Florida, southern United States, they're actually smaller. They're referred to as skunk apes. And, you know, the ones in the Pacific Northwest are actually much bigger. Very interesting. Okay, now that kind of does that case. I have some other cases here that I haven't looked at, but they're very close to this area. I just want to read some of them because some of them sound interesting. Okay, here's another case. The name of this case is called, so this is the same area, very close to where we're looking at in the photographs, but this is now a different case we're going to talk about because there's a pattern of Bigfoot cases in this area, or skunk apes. Okay, so this is called Single Car Accident in Big Thicket National Preserve. So this is an accident that happened. This happened in March of 2005 in Polk County near Dallardsville. It happened around 4:30 in the Big National Preserve, Big Sandy Creek unit, the same unit. All right. It happened south of the Alabama Coshada Reservation. There is a Native American reservation here. In pine forest, hardwood bottoms, and impenetrable undergrowth. That impenetrable undergrowth, that's why I talk about the big thicket. That is the thicket part of the big thicket. We have my good friend and great contributor, Mr. Crowley. Thank you for being here. Once again, I want to give a shout out for everybody who's here. Thank you so much, Melinda, for being here. Great questions, great contribution. Thank you, Iowax, for being here. Thank you, John P. Adventures. Thank you, Weekend Havoc. Thank you, Mr. Crowley. Thank you, Scotty B. Thank you, Mr. Catfish. Thank you all for being here. Okay, so this, I'm reading right now a Bigfoot account that happened in East Texas over the area that we're looking at. Okay, so this happened in March 2005, about 4:30. It doesn't say PM or AM. Okay, so it says, here's the witness account. It was one witness. It says, in March of 2005, at approximately 4:30, as reported by an individual called to the scene as part of an emergency response team, an individual was involved in a single car accident on a highway through the Big Sandy Creek unit. Upon arrival to the scene, the response team found the individual still in his car. The car apparently rolled and ended up in the woods off the highway. The individual reportedly gained consciousness when the team arrived and then began to tell them what happened. Whoa, this is creepy. The individual remembered seeing a dark, upright figure with long hair standing in the middle of the road. The height of the figure could have been anywhere between 5 feet and 8 feet, and certainly bigger than a child. The individual remembered that the figure was facing the car and standing erect. The individual honked the horn, but the figure did not budge. The individual swerved to miss the figure and came as close as 20 feet before veering off the highway and rolling the car. This was the last thing the individual remembered before crashing. Once again, this is very close to the account that I just read. Let's see. Okay, so now we have some investigator notes. The investigator for this case was Daryl Collier. Here's some additional notes. So the individual remembered the face as appearing fuzzy. Although the individual had no idea what was standing upright on the yellow line in the middle of the highway, the individual completely ruled out a human as a possibility. The individual told me that even a drunk human would have budged when the horn was honked. This figure simply would not move. The motorist gave way. The individual repeatedly told me that they simply did not know what it was. The figure was bigger than a child, about between 5 and 8 feet tall. It should be noted that 3 feet is quite a variance in height, but the witness reportedly told me that only the most obvious aesthetic details could be retained, and the height remained an uncertainty, 5 to 8 feet. The figure was upright and had long hair like a woman. Refused to yield its ground in the middle of the highway, was bigger than a child but no taller than 8 feet. No clothing could be remembered by the individual. The witness was adamant that the figure was not a human, but completely uncertain what it was. Okay, very interesting. All right, we have some more cases from this area. These are new to me, so I'm kind of just reading them. Okay, here's another case. Let's see. Crawley says, my friend, want to go down the Biggie hole? Hit me up on Facebook. Tell me more about the Biggie hole. It sounds like fun. Scotty B, good vibes. Yes, definitely. Thank you for being here, Scotty B. Okay, once again, I'm talking about this area because this is where my plan would be enacted to get a Bigfoot body. Once again, my plan to get a Bigfoot body would be to prove it to science by writing a scientific paper and preserving the body in a museum. My goal is to help conserve Bigfoot, although I'm not sure if this would actually happen. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to get a Bigfoot body. Another thing, my plan does not involve killing a Bigfoot. Yes, I will get a Bigfoot body. Yes, the body will not be alive, but I will not kill a Bigfoot. I believe it's unethical. But I'm talking about the area where I would do it. And so right now I'm reading reports from the area, which we're looking at right now. It's in East Texas. I've read 2 reports so far. They all happened in 2000s. I'm going to read some more, and then I'm going to talk about my plan. So I'm reading these reports because, like, hey, there seems to be a Bigfoot in this area. Okay, here's another case. This one's called 3 family members have encountered near Segno in what is now Big Thicket National Preserve. So this is the same area. It says 3 family members have an encounter in this area. Okay. This is an older case. Okay, this happened in November of 1972, going way back. This happened at 3:30 p.m. in Polk County. Same area as all the other cases I've talked about. And it said it happened at 3:30, and it says every household in the community of Segno is a city at the time, had gardens and cornfields, because this was in 1972. Okay, so the number of witnesses are 3 witnesses. Let's see what the case says. Witness account. It was November 1972. After the opening of deer season, it was a clear afternoon, and I had just gotten home from school. It was about 3:30. My grandmother, great aunt, and I were driving down the dirt road. This area is currently in the Big Thicket National Preserve and is very heavily wooded. The Big Sandy Creek runs in the east about 1/2 mile. It runs to the east about 1/2 mile. I was 12 at the time and sitting in the back seat, leaning forward between the two of them and talking. We were probably driving not too fast because it was a dirt road, the width of which was probably about 50 to 60 feet. Out of the woods on our right side appeared an ape-like thing running across the road. It stood around 7 to 8 feet in height. Okay, interesting. Had long arms that it swung as it ran. It did not run standing upright like a human, but appeared to be hunched over in its back like an ape. It was covered from head to foot in long brown hair. So look, all these cases, they report the same thing, about the same height, up to 8 feet, long brown hair, long arms, crossing the road, and it appears to be somewhat on all four as well. Very interesting. It never turned to look at us, but stayed focused on the woods on the other side of the road. So we did not get to look at its face. We almost hit it with the car as our front bumper missed it by about 3 feet. It disappeared into the woods to our left, and we never even slowed down. We were so shocked by what we saw. I said, "What was that?" And my grandmother said, "I don't know. Maybe it was a man in a hairy suit." I couldn't imagine what kind of person would be foolish enough to be roaming around the woods in a hairy suit during deer season. That's the other thing. This area, there's hunters out there. I've lived in this area. Now, the people here love their guns. They don't seem to be afraid to use their guns. And so it's very unwise to walk around in a hairy suit. I don't think people would do that. We never spoke of it anymore or told anyone about it because we knew it was too unbelievable. I didn't tell my story to my mother until a few years ago, and she confronted my grandmother. My grandmother finally confirmed what we had seen, but she said, "It scared me so bad I hated to talk about it." Now, I really don't care if people believe my story or not. I know what I saw, and it wasn't a man in a hairy suit or any other kind of large animal. That's the other thing. There are no bears in this area, you know. That's the main thing it would be, is a bear. I work in this area. Unfortunately, there used to be bears in this area. They no longer live in this area. There used to be black bears in this area. They no longer live in this area. Although in the 70s, maybe they did, but some of these cases from the early 2000s. It was definitely a Bigfoot creature that we witnessed that day, and I will never forget it. Okay, sounds. The sounds we heard at the lake was frightening, and unlike any I had ever heard before, it was very shrill and almost like a hoarse scream. It was also very loud, like whatever made it was large and very close, but we couldn't see because of the thick woods. Additional observations. Large ape-like creature running with long arms, swinging side by side. It was slightly hunched over while running. It was covered with long brown hair from head to toe. This creature's body looked and moved like the creature filmed in Northern California in the Patterson film from many years ago. Interesting. Here's some additional notes from this case. It says, on another occasion, around 1972, I was riding my bike with some other kids, and we rode to the backside of the lake in Segno. The backside is a large berm, and down behind it is a swampy area that drains into Menard Creek. I've caught beetles in Menard Creek. It's a great creek. We heard something scream in the woods behind us, not more than 20 yards away. It was very shrill, and I couldn't describe, but would make the hair stand up on the back of your neck. It wasn't an animal that I was familiar with. Possibly this could have been a Bigfoot, but we didn't see anything as we were frightened and left the area quickly. On another instance, in 1978, my friend and I were riding horses on the same dirt road as my sighting, but on the other end, about 2 to 3 miles south of FM 943. A large, dark figure standing on 2 legs came out into the road and watched us for a good minute. As we were riding toward it, it then went back into the trees, but so far up ahead of us that we could not determine what it was. The only reason I mention this is because no one lived that far down the road and no people were down there that day, or we would have seen them drive by earlier. That is the reason I believe was possibly a Bigfoot. Interesting. Now, I will say I know a little bit about the history of this area. This area was first really, at first, way back in the day, it had a lumber boom. So it was a lumber town. So it was like a little boom town. You know, it filled up with people and everybody was making money off of lumber. Okay, then that passed. Then this is the first area where oil was found in the United States. So several years later, it was an oil boom town. And then there was a bunch of oil that was gotten from this area. So it had another boom. Right now, there's not a lot of people that live there. There's still a little bit of oil going on. But I remember specifically reading about this area, and back in the lumber boom days, there were people that lived in the woods. They were called dog people. They were just people that lived in the woods and the forest. And I don't know, could some of these individuals, could there be people that live in the woods still, and that's what they're seeing? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they're camouflaging themselves, but with like fake hair or like a ghillie suit or something. I don't know. The behavior is also very strange, but I just want to throw that out there. Okay, one more case, I think. No, we have a bunch more cases. Let me see. This one says truck driver reports a late night road encounter. There's another one that says, let's see. There's one about a cemetery. I wanted to read that one. And then I think I'll go ahead and tell you my plan. Okay. This is the last one I'll read. It goes even further back. So this one's called, the name of this case, I'm getting all these cases from woodape.org. You can see the link in the description. So once again, we're looking over this area. So this happened in 1964 in Polk County, Texas, nearby the town of Livingston. It happened in mid-morning in the pine forest in the East Texas Big Thicket. Plenty of creeks nearby. Three witnesses, okay? The name of this case is, as a child, witness has encounter at a cemetery. Okay, witness account. When I was approximately 10 years old, I went with my best friend Doug and his mother to a small cemetery in the Big Thicket east of Livingston. Doug had a little brother who died at birth and was buried there. His mom had asked me if I wanted to go with them to visit the grave. Just after she had finished putting some flowers on the grave and saying a little prayer, we were turning to go back to the car when we heard something crash at the edge of the woods behind the cemetery. We looked back and saw a large, dark, hairy creature standing right behind the back fence of the cemetery, maybe 50 yards away. Mrs. Jones screamed, and the creature gave a loud grunt and shuffled back into the woods, kind of a half waddle, half trot. Mrs. Jones told us to get back in the car quick, which we did. Doug said she never went back to the cemetery again. Whoa. Okay. Very crazy. Okay, so I hope you had fun with the stories. I certainly did. Okay, I've described why I think Bigfoot is real. I've described why I want to get a body. I've described whether it's right to get a body. I've also told you that I don't plan on killing a Bigfoot to get a body. And lastly, I've described the area where I would get a body from. And I showed you pictures of this area. And I talked about a lot of the cases that happen in this area to show that it seems to be a Bigfoot hotspot. So now I will tell you the plan, which, like I said, it's just a thought experiment. I'm not even sure if it's ethical to do. I'm not planning on doing it, but I would like some feedback. Melinda says, I wonder if there was an escaped exotic species spotted. Aren't there exotic hunting locations in Texas? Could have been an illegal species and wasn't recognized because it wasn't one they'd expect to see. Well, that's a really, really good hypothesis. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. Somebody could have just, Texas has, one time when I was a kid, I went to like a farm or it was in Texas. I went to some house. And this couple, they had tigers in their backyard. They built their own tiger cages, and they had tigers, and they had a little declawed tiger cub running around, and they had large full-grown tigers. What I'm trying to say is that Texas loves their exotic animals, and yeah, maybe these could be apes. Could be. They had reddish fur, long reddish fur. Somebody did say it looked like an orangutan. I'm not sure. I have to look at the height. Some people say it could be up to 8 feet high. But yeah, of course it could be an escaped wild animal, unfortunately, which is very sad. Not a likely explanation, just want to cover potential explanations. Very good. Melinda is a scientist, and as a scientist, we want to cover every base, leave no stone unturned. And when we're studying paranormal claims, we want to make sure we get rid of all the mundane explanations, all the boring things, because that's, Occam's razor is probably what it is. And if we cover all our bases at the very end, then perhaps we do have a paranormal explanation. Okay. Here we go. What is my plan to get a Bigfoot body? Well, let me talk about this phenomenon that I've noticed. Okay. The phenomenon is that people have reported that they will leave a gift for Bigfoot. What kind of gift? Where do they leave it? Well, they go to an area where Bigfoot likes to live. They don't actually see Bigfoot. This process I'm about to describe does not involve looking at Bigfoot. It's a very passive. So what do people do? They go to an area where Bigfoot is reported, or maybe they live in an area where Bigfoot is reported, and they leave an offering in the woods. They don't see Bigfoot, they just leave an offering. What do they leave? They leave like liquor, candy, food, you know, stuff like that, food and stuff. Apples. Somebody told me pumpkin pie, just treats basically. And then so they leave it as an offering in an area where they know Bigfoot would like to be. And then Bigfoot comes and takes it, it's not there anymore. So that's part of my plan, is first leaving a offering for Bigfoot. Like I said, what would I leave? I would probably leave like sweet cakes, pancakes, liquor, toys, like children's toys, dolls. They seem to like children. Okay. And where would I do it? Well, I would probably do it near a creek where these Bigfoot are sighted. That's probably where Bigfoot lives. Okay. So, this gifting thing also is reported with other animals. For instance, birds. There are reports of people leaving or feeding crows or ravens or grackles, these intelligent birds. They feed them food in their backyard. And then these birds remember, they have a good memory. They remember what you're doing, and they leave you something behind. They leave you a gift, like little trinkets, little beads, little coins, little knickknacks. I can't read the bird's mind, but it seems like they're doing it. They're returning the favor. You're gifting the bird something, the bird is gifting you back. I'll just tell you a funny story. I started walking around my neighborhood. I live in a suburban area of Texas, and in December, and I saw this like water bird in the middle of the night, in the middle of the street, about 3 feet tall, really tall and skinny and lanky, in the middle of the street near a stop sign. I saw this bird. I'm not sure if it's like a stork or a egret. I still haven't found out what species it is, but it's one of these tall, lanky birds. And I thought it was odd. I was like, why are you doing this? Why are you in the middle of the road, buddy? There's lots of areas that are near water. Long story short, since December, I've seen this bird multiple times. And not only that, it has followed me. When I'm walking, it follows me. Sometimes it knows where I live now. It waits for me in front of my house. And multiple times I'll walk and it'll appear in front of me. Like, I think this bird remembers me and he wants me to see him. I think he's my friend. I think I befriended a wild bird. Very crazy. Anyway, it's been reported that you could gift birds, seeds or insects, whatever they eat, they will gift you back. This has also been reported for Bigfoot. It has been reported that if you leave gifts for Bigfoot, Bigfoot will leave you gifts behind. Like, it'll like weave a basket for you, or it'll just leave you little trinkets. Okay. So, so here's my plan. Go to this area where I know there's Bigfoot sightings. Maybe set up a trail camera near a creek. Maybe set up the camera so it's facing the mirror, and so the mirror is facing the creek. Maybe try to hide the camera. But I would start leaving. This area is about an hour and a half away from me. I would start leaving gifts for Bigfoot. Periodically I would see if it takes them. It would be near a creek because I believe they travel through creeks. And this may take me a long time, It may take me, maybe nothing will take it. Maybe, it'll just be a coyote or a raccoon that takes it. But this is what my goal is. My goal is that eventually Bigfoot will start taking my my treats, my gifts. And how can I prove that's happening? Well, I could try to set up these trail cams. That's step one. I don't know how long this may take me. This whole plan may take me several years. It may take me 10 years. But you know what? I don't care, because I would be proving that Bigfoot is real. 10 years is nothing for a discovery like that. That would be the discovery of a lifetime. It would revolutionize the way we see the world. So anyway, what I would want to happen, Here we go. You have a comment? Very cool. Okay, Melinda says, very cool about the bird. Maybe a great blue heron. Sounds like them. Yeah, I'll look up I'll see if it is a great blue heron. I like him because he's very awkward. He looks like an awkward teenager because he's all tall and lanky and skinny, and it's just so awkward the way he tries to interact with me. It's cute. I mean, I'm glad I have a bird friend, and I'm planning on feeding him too. I want to start feeding him crickets or something because I looked up these birds like to eat insects. Anyway, so I would try to. Here we have another comment. That would be a fun project to do with the Bigfoot. Great plan. Great. Thank you. So here's where the plan gets into. Okay, step 1, start giving gifts to Bigfoot. Step 2, try to confirm that Bigfoot is taking my gifts with a trail camera. Step 3, try to get a gift back from Bigfoot. Okay. This is where I get the body. At first, I would just wait. Maybe Bigfoot would give me a gift. Maybe he would give me one of these baskets. That would be awesome. If not, maybe I would start to ask Bigfoot for a gift. So I would, along with the gifts that I leave Bigfoot. Once again, I'm never seeing Bigfoot. I don't see him in person. We're never in the same area at the same time. Maybe I get lucky and I get a trail camera. But anyway, I would, if I'm not getting a gift back from Bigfoot, this is several months or years into the process, with my gift, maybe I would leave a little note. I would leave a simple drawing. I would draw myself like a human, handing over an apple, which is what I give him. And then I would have Bigfoot, I would draw him handing me something in return. Like I said, at first, maybe it would just be an acorn or a rock or something. But eventually, here's the thing. Bigfoot, I believe they die. They die of natural causes. I don't believe they're invincible. I believe they die of natural causes. So eventually, into this project, I have to be careful. I don't want to be morbid. But eventually I would ask Bigfoot for the ultimate gift in return. The ultimate gift would be a body of a Bigfoot that has already died, basically. I don't want them to kill a Bigfoot. I want them to give me the body of a Bigfoot that has died of natural causes, of old age, or of an accident. There's some fringe thoughts out there. There's some fringe ideas that Bigfoot can telepathically read your mind or could sense your intentions. So maybe I would try to, show him that my intention is like, I want this body because I want to protect you. I want to prove that you're real. I want to preserve your species, your culture. But that's basically the plan. I would ask Bigfoot for a body. So you see, I would not be killing a Bigfoot. I would not be hunting a Bigfoot. I would simply ask him for a body. And not only ask him, I would trade him for a body. I would trade him whatever he wants. Like I said, man, maybe he wants a bazillion million cakes. Maybe he wants, like, let's say 100 pounds of cake. Maybe he wants beef jerky. Maybe he wants a bunch of apples. That's a small price to pay for a Bigfoot body. Also, maybe I don't need a body. Maybe I just need a hand or a skull. A skeleton would be great. What I think happens is they probably bury their dead. I'm sure they buried their dead. That's why we don't find it. Perhaps they could just dig up a body that's already been buried and give me part of it. That's all I need. Now, the communication part, that's the tricky part. Melinda studies animal behavior. So I study it as well, but admittedly, I mostly study insect behavior, but still. But that's my plan, basically. I would love the feedback. That's it in a nutshell. We have some feedback here. Nina says, brilliant plan. Thank you, Nina. Thank you for being here, Nina. I appreciate that. Nina says, that's a tough intention to ask for a body. Yes, it's a big ask. It's the ultimate gift. But like I said, I'm willing to give him what he wants or what she wants. Melinda says, I agree with Nina Williams. And Melinda says, tough intention. Yeah. But anyway, that is my plan, guys. That's basically what I would want to do. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a body, a whole body. Maybe it could be a body that's been dug up, excavated. I would trade for it. I would have to build a relationship. My intention would have to be very clear. I don't want to be morbid. I don't want you to kill anybody for these pancakes. But maybe there's other things I could ask for. I don't know, like hair. I could ask for, maybe I could set up a camera and ask him. Okay, this is getting into the fringe, or not fringe, but kind of like weird territory. But yeah, I could maybe set up like a little camera booth or something, and just have some simple directions. Be like, look, just I want you just to shoot yourself with the camera, not with a gun. Anyway, let's just say that my plan for proving Bigfoot is real, not necessarily for a body, but my plan for proving Bigfoot is real is basically to ask Bigfoot for the proof. And I don't think I've never heard anybody say that. Everybody's always trying to go in the woods, set up cameras, do wood knocks, sneak up on Bigfoot. I've never heard anybody say, hey, why don't we just ask him? Let's just ask Bigfoot for a body. But yeah, I have a lot of plans that are paranormal of how to prove things are real. Like I have another video on my channel of how to trap a poltergeist. A poltergeist, I believe, is a dangerous animal, probably interdimensional. And I have a plan on how to trap it. I have a plan on how to get a Bigfoot body. However, these plans are dangerous. They're risky and they're potentially unethical. So a lot of times I just put them out there as a thought experiment so we could generate ideas. And the other thing is I think they would make a great movie or a work of fiction, a novel. So like this story right here, I could see myself writing this out as a story, a fiction story, and that's still a thought experiment. But yeah, man, whoa, I've been talking for about an hour and 20 minutes. Yeah, I'm starving. But yeah, thank you everybody for being here. All this talk about giving Bigfoot cakes and pancakes and chili dogs has really made me hungry and thirsty. But yeah, I think I'm about done. That's my plan basically. If you guys have any questions, I guess I'll let it run for a little bit. And I know there's a little lag between questions and comments. But once again, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, Nina, Melinda, Iowax, Mr. Crowley, Scotty B, John P. Adventures, Mr. Catfish, Rican, Havoc 215, and anybody I missed, and anybody watching this in the future, thank you as well. I really appreciate it. And as always, if you have any questions, you could go ahead and leave them in the comments, and I will respond to all questions. Melinda, I will comment. I'm working on an answer to you left a comment on my last video. What was that video about? Well, you left a comment on one of my videos about scientists studying the paranormal. So you know what? I'll go ahead and answer you right now because I'm right here. So let me read some comments real fast. Scotty B says, "Are forest friends like quartz?" Whoop! Hold on a second. I hit something wrong button. Okay, Scotty B's got some recommendations for me. He says, "Are forest friends like quartz, rocks, gifts? Some it will help." Okay, there you go. Quartz and rocks. I could get some of those. Okay, Melinda says, also, I thought the Patterson Gimlin film was debunked in 2005. I think the guy in the Bigfoot suit came out and said he was paid $1,000 to do it. There's a 5-minute video by John Mangani on YouTube. Okay, I'm not familiar with that, but I will definitely check it out. I will definitely thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so I'm going to answer a question that Melinda had on one of my earlier videos. I believe her question, Melinda, was about other scientists who study the paranormal. Melinda is a PhD scientist, and she is just getting started into studying UFOs and the paranormal. And my hat's off to you for being open about the subject. So her question earlier had to do with, have scientists been studying the paranormal? And I was going to name some people and some recommendations. Okay, so here's my answer. Number one, I believe there are 4 basic sectors of scientific research in the world. There's 4 ways that scientific research is done, okay? Melinda, you tell me if you believe this is correct, okay? One of the ways that scientific research is done is governmental. So the governments of the world have money, they have a budget, they have laboratories. So they conduct all kinds of research. They conduct weapons research, food research, behavior research, technology research, space research, whatever. So you have your government labs. Okay. Number two, you have your private industries. So these are companies all over the world, like Microsoft, Tesla, um, any company you could think of. Chick-fil-A has a laboratory where they try new foods out. So private industry. Okay. Number three, you have independent researchers. These are people that they're not affiliated with any organization. They have money. They have a lab in their garage. They have a lab in a building, and there's nothing stopping you from doing research. I mean, anybody, if you have the money and the knowledge, you could conduct your own research. So that's the independent. And number four, the last group, I believe, is academic. So these are your research institutions, your nonprofit organizations, your universities, your museums. They do research. Okay. Here's the interesting thing about these four branches of research in the world. Okay. There's only one of them that really has any obligation to make their discoveries public. Melinda, tell me if this is true, but when it comes to scientific research, the results are valuable. Whatever you discover is valuable, but those results, they belong to whoever paid for it. Out of those four groups, only one group has any obligation to make those results available to the world. That's the academics. That's research scientists. Research scientists, they get research grants. They apply for money. They get stipulated what that money is used for. They conduct the experiment, and then they write a paper and they publish it. And once the paper is published, the whole world knows about it. Academics, they have to do this. That's part of their job. It's called publish or perish. You have to do research. But they're only a fraction of the research that's being done is by academics. If you're a private company and you fund your own research, you don't have to tell anybody about it. That could be private. You can keep it to yourself. Actually, you make more money if you keep it to yourself. If you're a government, you don't really have to share that information with anybody. You don't want to. You keep it to yourself. And if you're an independent individual, you're just doing research in your lab. Hey, nobody even knows you're doing it. You don't have to tell anybody. So why am I saying this? Because I think a lot of paranormal research has been done in this planet. A lot of it has been done. I think a lot is known about paranormal topics, about cryptids, about UFOs, about ghosts, about afterlife. But most of it is kept private because, like I said, those results belong to whoever paid for it. And most of it is not done by the academics. Only the academics have to make that public. Here we go. Melinda says, oh, that's an older one. She says, Melinda says, yes, agree. 4 branches, yes. Whatever results occur is valuable, even if considered a failure. Yeah, that's another good thing. Negative results are valuable. If you do something 500 times and never works, well, guess what? You know how not to do it 500 times. You're closer to the answer. And then Melinda says, publish or perish. Yeah. Okay. So that answer, Melinda, what I'm trying to say is that I think there's a lot of scientists in the past, in the current time, and in the future that are doing paranormal research. And I believe they have a lot of crazy results, but I believe they keep it private. Okay. And then she says, and because it's private, not peer-reviewed, it needs a scientific method. That's a good point. Yeah. So she's talking about peer review. A lot of the research is made public before it's, the people, they get the money, they get the idea for a project, they get the money for the project, they conduct the project, they get the results, they analyze the results, they write a paper, but then they submit that paper to an academic journal, and then it has to be reviewed by the editor. So other scientists, your own colleagues, have to look at that research paper, and they decide whether it's good. They decide whether it gets published or not. If they think it's bad science, they'll give you notes. They'll either say, hell no, we're not going to publish it, or they'll give you notes, and then you could correct it, and then they'll publish it. But this is a way of controlling the science. But yeah, if you're private, you don't really have that peer reviewed. Although, you could do peer review. You could have other scientists within your organization do peer review. Okay, so Melinda also had asked me about other scientists that have done research into the paranormal. So I recommend you look up the books by Jacques Vallée. Jacques Vallée is a French computer scientist. He's an astronomer. He's a Silicon Valley entrepreneur. If you look online, you can see a lot of his videos, his a lot of his presentations. Dr. Jack Valet is one of my favorite UFO researchers. He's heavily science-based. He's written a lot of books. You know, one of his most famous books is Passport to Magonia. In Passport to Magonia, he talks about how a lot of the early history of humanity described beings like fairies, being abducted by fairies and trolls and gnomes. And he points out that they're very similar to our modern day UFOs. So he says perhaps, you know, UFOs and gray aliens are the same thing as fairies. So he's written a lot of books. So I recommend you listen or read the books of Jack Valet, Dr. Jack Valet. Another researcher is Dr. Alan Hynek. Dr. Alan Hynek was an astronomer who worked for Project Blue Book. He was originally tasked with working with a government program to disprove that UFOs are real. He was told by the government to play down that UFOs are real, and he did play along. He famously said that some UFO sightings were gas, swamp gas, but later he changed his opinion. He was actually the mentor of Jack Valet. So Dr. Hynek later changed his mind and he became a UFO believer and not a skeptic. And he's written several books on the subject of UFOs. So I recommend these two. There's also another a researcher who recently wrote a book called American Cosmic. And I forget her name. And I really hate it when I forget a scientist's name or anybody's name because I feel like it disrespects them. But let me try to find her name. So anyway, this researcher, she studies, there's a lot of interviews with her online. Her book is American Cosmic. She actually also works with Dr. Jack Valet, but she studies theology and religion, and she went to the Vatican and studied all their textbooks about astronomy and weird things. And she's another good scientist, academic scientist studying the paranormal. And let me see. I guess I'll open another window. Hold on a second. I want to just get her name. Okay, and then I guess, hold on a second. American Cosmic. Okay, so this, her name is, okay, so the book is called American Cosmic, UFOs, Religion and Technology, and her name is Diana Walsh Pasulka. So I recommend her as a researcher of the paranormal. All right. And so those are three to get started with. And there's some channels I recommend that are really good on YouTube that will get you caught up on a lot of the phenomenon, and they're professionally done and very entertaining. So I recommend a channel on YouTube called Think Anomalous. Think Anomalous covers everything. UFOs, they do documentaries, very entertaining. They just did a documentary on the Jinn, which is a Muslim form of paranormal entity. Another channel is called Red Panda Koala. Red Panda Koala. Hold on a second. I keep forgetting all these channel names. But this is another channel that studies the paranormal, and they do really good documentaries. They do documentaries on these researchers, like Dr. Alan Hynek and like Dr. Jack Valet. Red Panda CIA UFO. Let's see. Yeah, it's called Red Panda Koala. And his recent video that just came out is called How the CIA and the Air Force Created the UFO Stigma. So yeah, definitely recommend that one. Okay, so let's see. We have some comments. I got to tell you guys, I'm having so much fun talking to you guys. Thank you so much for being here from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate you guys being here. It's just so much fun for me. I hope you guys are learning something. My good friend, Raven, says hi. Hello, Raven. Raven's in Brazil. Brazil is actually a UFO hotspot, actually. Raven, have you seen a UFO? Has anybody you know seen a UFO? Belinda says, my elderly neighbor is from Scotland and has talked about fairies she experienced as a child. Whoa, share those stories. I love a good fairy story. You know, fairies are not just known, the traditional fairy stories, all the elements. I've collected fairy stories from the Philippines. They have all the same elements. It's very interesting. Nina says, but no matter how secretive you are about securing a huge body and transporting it to your private lab, I would only hope that a government agency would not move in on your body. Great point. I didn't mention this, but I had thought about it. Is it risky to have a Bigfoot body and to prove it? Yes, I believe it is risky. I believe I would have to keep this secret until the very end. I would have to make a secret agreement with the journal, be like, look, I got these results, but I don't want anybody knowing about this. This is conspiracy theory, I guess, but I believe there's some organizations that would not want a Bigfoot to be discovered. The discovery of a Bigfoot would have major implications for governments and for businesses. And so, yeah, I think there's powerful organizations and people that would not want a Bigfoot to be disclosed. I definitely think that. And I have thought about how I would have to be a little clandestine, a little bit secretive with my research. Very good point, Nina. Very good point. Okay, Melinda asked for Jack Valet. Yeah, it's a weird spelling. Here, I'll give you the spelling right here because he's French. I'll give you the spelling. Okay, so his spelling is first name Jacqueus, last name Vallee. First name Jacqueus, last name Vallee. Jack Valet. And if you go to that channel, the one that's Think Anomalous and the Red Panda Koala, they both have documentaries on them. Okay. Nina Williams says, and abscond with it. Oh, big word. I actually don't know what abscond means, so I don't mind admitting when I'm wrong or when I don't know something. As a scientist, whenever someone tells me, asks me a question, I always say I don't know if I don't, especially if I'm talking to children. I think it's important for children to know that you can admit that you don't know everything. Okay, abscond means leave hurriedly and secretly, typically to avoid detection. Oh, yeah. Yes, Nita, I would definitely want to abscond with my body of a Bigfoot. Okay. Great book recommendations. Oh, thank you, Nina. Wow, thank you so much for the references. That's super, Melinda says. This is a wonderful show this evening. Thank you. I really am enjoying the show, too. Thank you, Nina, for being here. Secret and chilled. Yeah, you do want to keep a body cold. Very true. And Melinda says, great, thank you. Great. Well, wow, what an adventure we've been on. I really feel crazy. But I am so hungry. Talked about chili dogs and cake, so I think I'm going to get some chili dogs for my family. And then Melinda says, yes, I think you are right, Tanina. The powers that be would totally be all over a Bigfoot discovery. Yeah, that's one of the things. It's possible the government already knows Bigfoot is real. They don't want us to know because that would have implications for our national parks. You saw that map. They're everywhere, all over Texas at least. It would have large implications. So these are really cool thoughts. I mean, if I wrote that novel about this Bigfoot body being discovered, that would be part of the drama. I mean, part of the drama would be making the friendship with the Bigfoot, getting the body, keeping the body secret, different types of actors coming in, bad actors trying to stop me from showing that it's real, and then the consequences of Bigfoot being real. I think there's a lot of drama there. Nina agrees that, they do know that the governments do know that Bigfoot is real. Well, pretty crazy. Well, let me do a real quick commercial. Guys, if you like this channel, if you like saving money, if you like buying things, who doesn't like buying things? I'm a consumer at heart. I'm a capitalist. I love buying things. So there's this website called Mercari. It's an app as well. It's like eBay. You could buy anything you want there. You could buy books. You could buy a cast of Bigfoots. You could buy camping equipment, trail cameras, really anything you need. If you go to this link right here, the link is also in the description, but you could sign up with this link and you'll make an account. You'll get $10 off your first purchase. Anything you buy, like I said, stuff you normally buy. Let's say you have to buy makeup, contacts, lens solution, stuff you just buy anyway. Just go there and you'll get $10 off your first purchase. I'll get some money as well. It costs you nothing. And if you end up selling stuff like cleaning out your garage, you have that Bigfoot body in your closet, you want to get rid of it. If you sell $100 worth of stuff, they'll give you an extra $30. I also sell things on there. If you look up Wild Trees on Mercari, I mostly sell video games. I'm a big video gamer. And I also sell dinosaur toys, only toys of dinosaurs, and specifically Jurassic Park, Jurassic World toys. I am a collector. Let's see. Okay, guys. Well, that's great, man. If there's any more questions, go ahead and ask them. Thank you for being here, guys. And in the comments, feel free to leave any questions you have as well. But yeah, I think that's it. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for being here late. I love doing the show with you guys, and I really appreciate it. And oh, here we go. Comment. Scotty B says, Trees, do you have an email to contact you? In the next couple of weeks, I will try to get back to you, having some back work done. Yeah, of course. Yeah, if anybody wants to contact me, my email is, I think I memorized it. My email is wild, the number 7, then trees at gmail.com. So my email is wild7trees at gmail.com. Wild, the number 7, trees, all one word, at gmail.com. Feel free to email me, ask me questions, tell me about your experience. If you want to be a guest, you could come on. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is that Melinda says, good night, everybody. The last thing I'll say is, guys, I'm really excited about the episode on Sunday. There's this channel called Creature Movie Reviews on YouTube. And my favorite type of movie is monster movies. And this guy, he reviews all these great monster movies, obscure movies from the 70s, all these movies I never heard of, all these monster movies. He does a great job. Go subscribe to his channel. And he's very interested in Bigfoot. He's interested in UFOs. So we're going to talk about like his favorite monster movies, why he likes monster movies, his least favorite monster movies. We're going to have a lot of fun, guys. It's going to be great. If you like monster movies and entertainment, talk about how, the movies influence society. I told him, he said he's scared of abductions. I was like, hey, man, I think abductions are real. I'm going to answer all his questions about Bigfoot. So look up his channel, Creature Movie Reviews. He's going to be on this Sunday. Check out his channel. All right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.